To introduce, I think he's a new resident of Sherman Oaks. He spends more time here than a lot of people in this room. That's the new city attorney, new Trutanich, who takes office on July 1. And I'd like him to say hello, and also he needs to tell you a story about his first job, age 15 and a half. It's a great story.
I hope you don't get tired of seeing me come up here and just pop in every now and then when you have a meeting. I feel like I live here and I'm part of this community, so on the third Wednesday, if I'm in the valley, you can count on me at least showing my ugly mug and saying hello. I want you to know that I didn't just come for the election, I came to stay. That being said, don't tempt him. I did that at no meeting next week. Is there no meeting next week? Yeah. I'll be here anyway. I'll be watching football practice. So I guess was the last night or night before last?
Monday night.
Monday night we had a transition team meeting, and they asked me to say a couple of words, and I really didn't know what to say. So I recanted a story when I was 15 and a half years old. Those of you that have gray hair in this room will remember when you were in high school, you had to get permission from your high school to go to work. You had to get a work permit when you were 15 and a half years old. You remember those days? Yeah. Well, my dad worked in the cannery from the day he was 18 years old. And so he had about 20 years of experience there by the time I got there. And when I was 15, I couldn't wait until the day I turned 15 and a half years old. I went to my high school, I got my work permit, and I took the bus and the ferry over to Terminal Island, and I waited in line to get hired as an extra, as people do. You stand outside the gate and they pick bodies that go to work. And my uncle just happened to be the foreman that was hiring that day. And you know, not to say that nepotism is alive and well, but I'm sure it had something to do with it, especially given the job that he put me at. And I got a job working at in the cannery. Now, it wasn't just an ordinary job. There was a room with a ceiling about twice the size of this ceiling, about the same width from pole to pole here, from pole to pole there, and about 40 feet deep. And at the very top of the ceiling was a chute about the size of those poles. And what came out of those chutes was amazing. Baked anchovies fell from the sky. And at the bottom of in the middle of the room, about like where this table is, was a screw, a grinder. And there was like a little, not a grate, but you know, a piece of metal so you couldn't stick your foot in it, but it was big enough that you could stick your foot in it if you slipped. And you would end up being ground up anchovy along with it. So my uncle walked me over to this room. It was about 6:30 in the morning, 6:45. He goes, "This is where you're going to work, and there's your shovel. What you do is when the anchovies fall from the sky, you just pile them into that thing so they don't pile up in the middle or on the edges." Well, they catch anchovies by the ton, you know, and they cook them by the ton too. And so, you know, you get 200-300 tons of anchovies that are falling from the sky, and you're shoveling like hell into this screw. So I get there, and they give me these rubber boots to wear and an apron, and I've got this big shovel with the wide plastic. You see them at Home Depot, the wide plastic. I stay away from that aisle to this day. And there's an African American guy who's about, you know, when you're 15 and a half years old, if somebody's 45 years old, they look like they're 80. You know, but I swear he had to be. If he wasn't 75 years old, he wasn't a day. Now you could see every vein in his arm. He had been in this job, and this was his fiefdom. This is where he lived. And I come to find out, I was invading his home. So they put me in there, and the buzzer goes off, and we start to shovel. Anchovies come from the sky, and we're shoveling. I shovel for 2 hours. 2 hours, we don't say one word to each other. Not one word. I'm just shoveling. And the whole time I'm shoveling, I'm looking at this guy going, when is he going to say good morning? You know, when is this guy going to say good morning to me? Shovel, shovel, woo! 10:30 break comes. You get 15-minute break at 10:30 in the morning. 10:30 break comes. He goes outside. He pulls out a plastic lunch pail. He's got a cup of coffee and a thermos. He sits down, has his coffee. I'm sitting there looking for something to drink. I'm dying. I smell like fish. I'm covered with anchovies. You know, I don't know what I'm doing there, but I'm making like $1.97 an hour, so I know I'm rich. We get back to work. The buzzer blows. We start going to work. Finally, I get to a point where I'm ahead of the game. I'm shoveling more into the screw than is falling from the sky. So I get ahead of the game, I stop for a second, I put my shovel down, and I don't fall asleep on it, but I rest on my shovel, and I look at him and I go, my name is Dooch. How are you? He just turns his head without breaking a stroke, and he says, shut up, boy, and work. I got goosebumps. I grabbed that shovel and started shoveling. About 4 or 5 hours later, I mean, and we worked our tail off. He didn't say a word to me all day. Not one word. I matched him shovel for shovel at 15 and a half years old until about 3:30 in the afternoon. And then he looked at me and he says, I forgot his name, but he stuck out his hand and he goes, I'm so-and-so. And I went, I get it. That was the lesson of my life. I worked in that screw for 3 months with that guy, and I'll tell you right now, I never learned more about life from that one day with that man in that screw. And it was the learning point. I think that my uncle was telling me a message. I worked my tail off, and the way you get respect from people is not by glad-handing them and saying hello. It's by putting your nose to the grindstone and working. And the reason I told that story at my transition team meeting was because that's going to be my attitude inside the city attorney's office. So that's the story. Shut up, boy, and work.